Hey, in this video we'll be pretty much pitching and explaining the idea of an all-in-one legal manga app and why it should already be a thing. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. To give a general idea of what I'm going to be pitching, as the title suggests, I, and many others, want an all-in-one manga app, which is legal, from which we can access all of the manga that we're reading from almost, if not every manga publisher. To clear it up a little bit, there are already legal manga apps like the Shonen Jump and Manga Plus apps with a fuck ton of different manga, but the problem is that they are all from the Jump magazine line. So although they have a lot of manga, they don't have a lot of popular manga like Blue Lock or Fairy Tail that are not from the Jump line. And for Manga Plus, the only one of the two available in my country, they barely have any old series in it. Sure, they have the popular series like the big three, Rurouni Kenshin and Captain Tsubasa, that one came really recently, is what leads me to my next complaint. I would 100% read from the Shonen Jump app, but it isn't available here. That's the biggest upside of Manga Plus. I'm pretty sure the entire reason it was made was for the purpose of giving people around the world a way to read manga legally. So, my pitch for every publisher in Japan is to band together to give people around the world a widely accessible way to read manga legally. I know this is extremely unlikely to happen, so I will dedicate the rest of this video to how it would actually really benefit everyone, apart from one segment which I will get into way later. Of course, remember, everything that I say is essentially hoping for a perfect world. So talking about how everyone would benefit, let's start with that. Right now, outside Japan, reading manga officially is either simply impossible or just a downright bad experience. The main app I wanted to talk about here was K-Manga, because when it first came out and when I first downloaded it, you could read the first 3 chapters for free, and then you'd have to pay for every single chapter moving forward, or watch ads. And now they changed it to be more similar to Manga Plus, but back then, at least for me, there was absolutely no incentive to buy each chapter. At that point, it might have actually been cheaper to buy the volumes physically rather than legally read it on the K-Manga app. For the simply impossible part, a month ago, K-Manga posted they are available in 34 more countries, making the grand total 48 countries that they are available in. You see how that is less than 25% of the countries that are recognized by the UN? Then there's the Shonen Jump / Viz Media app, which is available in just 10 countries, which... damn! And then there's the saving grace of this subcategory, Manga Plus, for which I am almost grateful for because it gives me a chance to legally read manga online, and they are available in every country worldwide with 3 exceptions: China, South Korea, and Japan, because they have their own local apps which are already similar to the Manga Plus app, but they have their own platform. Alright, now to what it could include. In a perfect world, they would get all of their works ever published, completed, ongoing, new and old, and scan them, translate them, and upload them to the website. So this would include series like Jujutsu Kaisen, which ended last year, to fucking Spirit of Wonder, which ended in 1994, to ongoing series like Blue Lock and Dandadan. I know, it's already hard to imagine, but hear me out. They would translate to all 8 major languages of the world, according to the UN, so even more people would read manga officially. Those 8 as a necessity, and if you want and there is demand for it, you could hire even more translators to translate for other languages. Those wouldn't be for all series, but only those that people want it for, and the ones that translators want to / have to do. You could theoretically even hire for a monthly salary the people who translate for pirate sites, most of which do it for nothing apart from the passion for the series or just for the fuck of it, and donations. The only type of series that I could imagine that wouldn't be here would be the self-published series like Buzzer Beater from Takehiko Inoue, although you could just negotiate with the mangaka and get the series on the platform. There is already a lot of official translations for popular and ongoing series. Let's take Sakamoto Days, for example. It is translated into 7 languages currently. For less popular and completed series, you'd be lucky if there were translations for besides English. Fuck it, even English would be good, because there are series that are being translated into other languages, but not English. The main example that I found was Fire Punch. You would think that a popular series like this from a very famous mangaka would definitely have an English translation, and it is a Jump Plus manga. But no, the only translation that I could find on Manga Plus is in Spanish, but they have it translated to English on the Viz/Shonen Jump app. But still, Manga Plus is by far the best when it comes to different language translations, so I won't complain about that. Next, let's talk about maybe the biggest factor in this entire thing. How it would actually work. Mostly what I mean by this is how they would monetize it. There are two aspects to this, the publisher and the consumer side. Let's start with the publisher side. This is a very hard topic to talk about because we don't know just how much each publisher would want to sell their licenses to other publishers to allow them to keep their works there. Because magazines like Weekly Shonen Jump won't be asking the same amount as fucking Bouquet, which according to Wikipedia has had 17 series during its entire lifespan. Okay, we don't have to view it as selling their licenses, because they could also just take a share of all the earnings. Then it would go down to percentages. There are really only two paths that I can see that they would want to go down in this case. One, they would decide the percentage based on how much readers, let's say, that month read from their magazine compared to others. From the two, this is probably the more realistic but unbelievably much harder to maintain option, because each reader's stats would have to be tracked and maybe even time would have to be measured, because a reader might accidentally misclick on a series. Has happened to me before on Manga Plus a few times. So they would have to track for, let's say, 30 seconds to see if they're actually reading the chapter, and then add up each reader's stats and then divide everything between each publisher. An ungodly amount of work, but maybe even the more realistic one. The other one, in comparison, is a much simpler option. 2. There is a set percent for all earnings to go to each magazine. Let's say 8% goes to Weekly Shonen Jump, 6% goes to Shonen Magazine Weekly, 5% goes to Weekly Young Jump, etc, etc. At first, it might be a pain to decide it all, because each magazine would want to maximize their profits, so at first, it might take a long time to decide. My idea of how to get this done the fastest is to have all the series published on the platform for, let's say, 3 months for free, just to track all the statistics and then base it off that. And magazines with less than 0.1% of the readers for their manga would be automatically guaranteed at least 0.1% or something like that from the total earnings, to at least incentivize them to keep their manga on the platform, so they at least get something from it. Honestly, now that I explained it, the second option also makes sense. But if a popular, and I mean popular series, like Demon Slayer in 2020, appears, that magazine might feel as if they're not getting their proper share of the earnings. In that case, I would also suggest that they would make a meeting every, let's say, 3 months? I don't know, they could decide that between themselves, to discuss if the percent needs to be changed, with the 0.1% of the rule staying as a golden rule or something. Or maybe not even every 3 months, but whenever any magazine feels as though it's time to change it, for whatever reason, then they could get everyone together and discuss it. That's just an idea, but that's finally it for the publisher's side. Let's talk about the consumer side of the monetization. This is almost as touchy as the publisher's side of the monetization, because if you overprice it, then no one will want to subscribe to it. But if it's too cheap, then I doubt any publisher would actually want to participate. So this is the best thing I could come up with for this video. I doubt a freemium model would work when it's free to read ongoing series, but pay to read completed or on hiatus series, or something else, because the publishers wouldn't get enough money to want to participate. So I believe that they would have to do something similar to the Shonen Jump app, which charges $3.99 per month to use. I doubt charging more than $3.99 would get many people to want to subscribe. So I would honestly keep the $3.99 price tag, maybe raise it to $4.99, but that's stretching it in my opinion. Then, honestly, the rest of this is really hard to decide, because I couldn't find a solution beyond the almost entry fee price. Because if I go with some of the ideas that the publishers might use, then I know pretty much no one would want to support it. But if I go with how the customer wants, then publishers won't want to participate. So here's my best idea, though I'm not sure about this. If publishers would be inclined to lower the entry fee subscription price to, let's say, $1 or $2.99 per month, but they could lock the old/completed series behind a paywall of, you guessed it, another subscription of, let's say, $3.99 or $4.99 per month. Then that could work? Maybe? Or maybe switch the entry fee is $3 or $4.99 per month, and the old series are $1 or $2.99 per month. Although you would be spending the same in total, somehow the second option feels more appealing to me. And honestly, I think so it would also for publishers. Or maybe there could be a way without subscriptions for old series too. Wait, what about a set price for an entire series? Let's say Yu Yu Hakusho. That has 176 chapters and 19 volumes. They could charge, let's say, $20 for the entire set. Now hear me out. You might be thinking that's cheap. Or maybe expensive, I don't know. But to me, buying all of Yu Yu Hakusho legally for $20 on that platform would feel like a steal, because it would be between either buying less than 2 physical volumes with the new prices, or the entire set online for $20. And you might be thinking, okay, sure, $20 for the entire set seems pretty good, but what about the publishers? Do you think they'll want to sell it for that cheap? Well, let me ask you on the contrary. From their perspective, would they rather a customer using the subscription binge the entire series in a week or even less just to move on to the next completed/old series, and at the end they would earn a whole lot less than $20 for the entire series, or even worse, just pirate it? Of course not. They'd rather at least get something. Anyways, the last thing I could see them forcing the customers to buy, not going to lie, I'm the most hesitant about this because I feel that this would absolutely backfire the most. Charge to read the newest chapters. I know. I would be super pissed if I were paying a subscription and I would still have to pay for the newest chapters. But it clearly works. I mean, Webtoon. It's the biggest manhwa app by far, and they charge money to read like the 7 newest chapters, with the oldest 2 of the 7 chapters being able to watch ads to unlock. Sure, the biggest difference is that there isn't an entry fee subscription, but you get the idea, right? Although I wouldn't even think of spending money on the newest chapters, it clearly works because they're filthy rich. Though doing this would also provoke people to pirate, which would be much worse. So maybe they wouldn't do that, but instead charge an additional $1 to be able to read the newest chapters for every series? Yeah, that last idea might not be a good one, but that's my best guess. Alright, now to the thing that I mentioned at the start of the video. The thing that could cause this whole thing to crumble down. I wanted to talk about this last, but I feel that this is the best place to talk about it. So here we go. Imagine, everything I've said in this video happens, and it works. Everyone is happy. But then, suddenly, a big magazine like, let's say for example, Shonen Magazine Weekly, with its huge series like Blue Lock, Hajime no Ippo, Fairy Tail, GTO, The Seven Deadly Sins, and so on, leaves and makes its own app. Then the people who would want to continue reading their manga would have to either sign up for that too, and most likely another subscription, or the people who only really bought the original subscription for the all-in-one manga app for the series that were in that magazine, like the ones that I previously mentioned, would leave entirely. And because the magazine has some truly huge series, there would be a lot of people who would do that. Then, following this trend, there would almost definitely be a lot of other magazines that would see the success of the new app and try to profit like that too, making the all-in-one manga app weaker and weaker, eventually to the point that they would have to be shut down. And honestly, I can totally imagine this playing out in real life. People who are greedy would take the first step for this, and the entire premise, which everyone liked and was fine with, would destroy everything. The only thing that I could imagine would prevent this would be a contract that would prohibit those magazines from leaving until a set year, or they would get a massive fine, which would spark 2 new topics of interest. They all will have to decide the year of when the contract would have to expire, and have to write favorable enough conditions that they wouldn't want to leave and would sign again, and maybe a warning beforehand, so the main app would have time to readjust the price, so the app overall could still keep going, with a maybe lower subscription price, so the customers that would have wanted to leave because they mainly wanted to read that magazine's manga would stay, seeing it as not being enough to make them want to sign away. The other thing is the fines. I know I said that, but what kind of fines would they have to be for them pulling away a big part of the customers to their own, long-lasting, probably, app, and it's still not being worth it to quit before the contract expired? I mean, millions upon millions at least. Then you would also have to remember that not all magazines would earn the same, so they would have to adjust for each magazine accordingly, because magazines like Bouquet would obviously not have the same money that magazines like Weekly Shonen Jump and Shonen Magazine Weekly would. So yeah, if they want an all-in-one manga app to be a long-lasting thing, they would have to make sure that everyone liked it enough for them to never consider leaving. Otherwise, slowly, everything would go back to how it is now, with maybe better accessibility worldwide and translations in more than one language. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, I'll answer a question that personally even gave me this video idea in the first place. Why isn't there already an all-in-one manga app? To put it simply, it's because of greed and lack of innovation. Each magazine wants to absolutely maximize their profits and not share them with anyone, while discontinued magazines like Garo would only love this deal because they are currently earning either zero or extremely little from their extremely old manga. But if their manga was to be brought onto a new, never before seen all-in-one manga app and a hypothetical 0.1% minimum, oh yeah, just to be clear, the 0.1 is purely speculative, I use that as a baseline to give them something for their manga, they would suddenly get money again for their manga. And if their old manga were to, for some reason, really pick up again and become popular, they could use that money to fund the new work, and you get the point. But magazines like Weekly Shonen Jump already have a buttload of money, so it wouldn't be as good. Still great, but not as great. So they have room for flexibility, and they can fund their own apps and profit purely from their own series. And for lack of innovation, I mean it as Japan is known for being extremely old school and slow on decision making, especially to how they are affected outside Japan, especially in the manga sphere. So, if I had to guess why there isn't an all-in-one manga app, it's because they are content and greedy for their own profits. Then, the maybe biggest exception to this is Manga Plus, because instead of a single magazine, they can take all of their manga from the entire Jump line, which gives them a huge backlog. And if they ever begin to add more and more old manga, faster and faster, then I think their backlog, if it isn't already, could easily become the largest legal manga app with the most manga. Now that I've said all that, how realistic is an all-in-one manga app really? Honestly, not really, unless me, you, and a lot of other people begin to publicly say how we want an all-in-one manga app and how we would support it financially. It is quite unlikely. Personally, I would love to believe that one day there will be, but realistically speaking, unless a big change happens in the manga sphere, I find it really hard to believe it's possible, even with all the upsides for both publishers and customers. Let's be realistic, it'd have to be the biggest magazines that have to propose something like this, because let's say K-Manga. I personally don't know a single person who uses it, even with all of the wildly popular manga there. Both it and the Shonen Jump app have 1 million plus downloads, so we can't say exactly how much more popular one is than the other. But looking at the review counts, K-Manga has about 9 times less reviews, so I think it's safe to assume that the Shonen Jump app is a lot more popular, despite it being in 4 times less countries. Though I should say that the Shonen Jump app was released almost an entire decade earlier than the K-Manga app. So yeah, so it'd have to be someone from Shonen Jump approaching a representative of K-Manga, because otherwise, most likely the more popular of the two wouldn't want to do that because of, you guessed it, greed. But then there's the biggest argument for an all-in-one manga app: piracy. If they don't do anything, piracy will continue to roam free and will most likely grow and grow because it is a lot easier to convince someone to pirate their manga because most pirate sites have all the manga they would ever read, not going to say names, while most of the legal apps are most of the time quite limited and sometimes just not worth it. Rather than the other way around, trying to tell someone to give up their simulpub manga for nearly every series ever for a simulpub of a legal app that has just a fraction of the series that they would actually read is much harder than you might expect. Alright, after that, I can finally move on to, if there is, when could the all-in-one manga app release? Honestly, if I had to wager a guess, it'd be between two dates. My first guess would be pretty soon, because it is almost impossible that the owners of those apps haven't at least thought about the idea and haven't talked about it to colleagues or maybe even different magazines, and taking into consideration piracy is definitely on the rise, they almost have no choice but to do something to counter it. So maybe within a year, there could be an announcement of this. I know, crazy, but as I said, piracy is on the rise. Look, according to Google Trends, the maybe biggest manga piracy site against the most accessible manga app in the world, Manga Plus. It's clear piracy is on the rise, and even if they ban this particular piracy site, I can guarantee that at least 90% of people will just move on to a different piracy site. It doesn't work just banning a single popular piracy site. The owners have to realize that they are essentially shooting themselves in the foot if they ban the biggest manga piracy site, because as I said, the vast majority of people will just move on to a different piracy site. And I can tell you right now, there will be a minimum of 3 new popular piracy sites, making their job so much harder already. You have to eliminate the problem at its root, which for a lot of people is accessibility. If you have 20 different legal manga apps, there will be a very similar issue to what streaming movies has, which is either people will buy 5 different subscriptions to watch legally and spend a fuck ton of money, or the much easier option, piracy. So yeah, my first guess is that within a year, there will be at least an announcement because the owners have to do something. The other is between never or like a decade. At first, I was just going to say decade, but if it takes a full decade to make it and there still isn't an announcement about it, then you can probably stop hoping for a release altogether. But the reason I say decade is because, as I already mentioned, Japan, and especially in the manga industry, they are extremely old school and don't really want to change their ways because they are content and greedy and maybe even a little bit lazy. Because truth be told, making something like this would absolutely take a lot of time and effort. So as a reader who wants to see the manga industry flourish, I truly hope that they will release something like this, even a prototype, within a year. Here's a short and a little bit interesting thing that I had an idea about while writing the script for this video. Imagine the UI. The UI in Manga Plus is great because you can see the newest chapters for the entire last week, and they are categorized by day, and between that day, the views on that chapter. Now imagine that, but with every magazine. The UI would probably have to change a lot. Maybe each magazine would have to be separated and then a completely separate column for the 10 most viewed chapters of that day in the past week between each magazine. So the people who read a lot of popular series can immediately find it. Alright, I have one last thing to talk about. What can you do to improve the chances of something like this happening? Now, if I had a quintillion subscribers, then I would say let's start a hashtag or something. But if I have to say what you can truly do, if you live in Japan, then you could send mail directly to the magazines requesting something like this. But for those that live outside Japan, there are a very few things you could do. But there is one main thing, which I would encourage you to do. As you might have caught on watching this video, I really like how Manga Plus is pushing the manga industry forward. By the way, I am not sponsored by them. They are currently the most accessible manga app by far worldwide. They actively translate manga into other languages. Although just from Jump magazines, they do publish a lot of manga to English. And I mean a lot. And that includes old manga, with Captain Tsubasa being published to the app somewhat recently, which I really support. Of course, you don't have to support them by subscribing to their paid plans, but I believe a great way to get the point across is supporting them financially, or you can interact online to their posts more and positively. using their app in general, even if for a minute a day. But if you are interested in supporting them financially, they have 2 subscription plans, which if you want, you can check out for yourself. But I've already subscribed to the deluxe plan with the discount because I want to support what they're doing. And if you want to show that you support them too, then you could also do that or show support in any way you want. Alright, that's about this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe, and wow, this video came out way longer than I expected it to be. Not sure how long this will take to edit, but I'm pretty sure it'll take a lot longer than usual. But I liked it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. See ya!